Hey, good afternoon, and welcome to our Preakness 150 handicapping show as we get set for the second jewel of the Triple Crown. We're live here in Baltimore, Maryland, although it may not look like it. We are posted up here getting ready for Preakness 150. Preakness 150 and getting set for this one. We've got a field of nine and a group that looks a lot different than what we expected to see from just about a week ago when we were unsure whether or not journalism would compete here. Preakness 150 and just waiting to connect with Joaquin here this afternoon as we get set for our FanDuel coverage. We started it this morning out on the backstretch at the Stakes Barn, but we're looking forward to a big weekend ahead. 9 races on Thursday, 14 races on Friday, Black Eyed Susan on Friday, and of course the Preakness on Saturday with 14 races, including a bunch of other stakes races as these race cards, I should say, continue to be very much like, uh, as far as cards are concerned, they do look a lot like Breeders' Cup cards like we saw back on Derby weekend. Keno joins me.
What's
Joaquin,
up,
you
Scotty?
there?
How are you, man?
I'm good. My friend. Just hoping that the Wi-Fi and internet stays stable here for us over the next 15 or so minutes. Here's a look at the field. Preakness 150, field of nine, like I was just saying, and we talked about this morning. A field that we were unsure of a week ago. We knew that a lot of these horses would come this way, but unsure of whether or not journalism would compete. But thankfully, he is here, as was announced on our airwaves on Sunday. And of course, 8-5 morning line favorite, and probably going to go off. What do you?
Yeah, maybe a tick lower than 8-5, but a field of nine. Like I think there'll probably still be some others that will take play in here. I certainly don't really see him too much shorter than God, really 6-5 in this particular spot. But yeah, as you were talking a second ago, there's no Derby win in here. There's no sovereignty from a racing fan perspective. Sure, I'm disappointed, but you have your post-time favorite in the Kentucky Derby and your runner-up in journalism. And then you also have the second choice in the wagering and Sandman, who's back in here as well. So you have those two horses coming back in 2 weeks, and then you throw in some up-and-comers like Goal Oriented, who's a perfect 2 for 2, and then Clever Again, who's rattled off back-to-back wins.
Yeah, we're going to keep it loose here. We're going to go through all horses here this afternoon for our Preakness preview show here on social media. We want to get our fans involved, so please do fire those questions via the avenue in which you are joining us. And we start with the inside, goal-oriented horse that's 2 for 2 in his career, put together a strong effort on an off track, which he most likely was going to encounter this weekend, along with the rest of these horses. What do you make of this performance? As he made the lead, they're coming to him late. Is he capable of giving Bob Baffert another win in the Preakness Stakes?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think I'd probably go to a few others before I probably went down towards the inside of Goal Oriented in this particular spot, just to give you an idea just how much of a later developer he was. When he broke his maiden on April 6th at Santa Anita, the day before, journalism won the Santa Anita Derby. And that was his third graded stakes win of his career for journalism, just to give you a time frame of just how maybe behind goal oriented might have been. Now, we just saw his backtrack right there in his victory on the undercard of Kentucky Derby Day. He gutted it out to win by 3/4 of a length. Scott, the talent is clearly there, but he's lightly racing in 2 for 2. Now I'm going from a mile and a 16th to a mile and 3/16 is just start number 3 and making his stakes debut. This is a big step up, especially when you're taking on the big boys like a journalism.
One thing I would say that he does have versus a lot of these other horses that ran obviously a couple of weeks ago, Baffert's worked him since then. He worked him at Churchill Downs to get ready for this, and 47-3. I mean, to have a workout in between a race that was 2 weeks ago is certainly worth noting. So that's the Sunday, not this time. We'll see how he fares. He's got speed. Obviously, they've established that being out in the front end, as Baffert said to us, was something more to his liking after taking the dirt on debut, going 6 furlongs. So we'll see how he fares, stepping up in class in the biggest way possible. Now, journalism established Grade 1 winner, favorite for this race, deserves to be, ran a giant race in the Kentucky Derby after dealing with, as he and American Promise did, Citizen Bull breaking for post one and then immediately taking that right-hand turn. So you can't knock anything, in my opinion, even in defeat, what journalism did in the Run for the Roses.
No, you can't knock his performance as well. I mean, sometimes this is just sports, Scott. You showed up with your best effort, and it just wasn't good enough on the day. I mean, it happens. You can show up with your best effort, and it's not the result that you wanted. I just think that's the case for journalism. He ran his race. Sovereignty just ran a little bit better that afternoon on the first Saturday in May. He ended up probably a little bit further back than I think the connections wanted to. He had a little bit of trouble maybe going underneath the wire the first time. But in the grand scheme of things, in the trip of a Kentucky Derby race with that many horses, I really don't think it was that bad of a trip. And Umberto put on a phenomenal ride by him to save ground with the first turn, find some room, get off the rail as they're going down to the backstretch. He kept them out of trouble on the far turn. It was a brilliant ride by him. Like I said, it was just one of those things. I think you're just second best on the afternoon. They waited as long as they could to make a decision to decide if they were going to run to the Preakness Stakes or not. Scott, you know as well as I do that if they didn't have that feeling, and from what they are seeing from this horse in his training, that he was not going to fire another really good shot in the Preakness Stakes, they wouldn't be here. They would sit this one out. So this is trusting the connections, knowing that they have full confidence in their athlete that he's going to show up once again on Saturday.
Yeah, and they waited, right? I mean, they waited as long as they possibly could. I know that initially we were expecting to hear a decision on Monday when they drew the race or entered into the race. We were able to get the scoop through Aaron Wellman on Sunday that he was going to go ahead and go. So they waited as long as they possibly could. Yeah, there's pressure to come into a race like this, whether it's direct pressure or just feeling the pressure of having one of the best 3-year-olds of the year going into the Derby and then obviously the Preakness Stakes. But they waited as long as they possibly could as far as making the decision. And he is here. Got a chance to see him this morning. Both you and I did. And very, very happy to have journalism here after firing 3 consecutive 100-plus buyers, 104, 108, 102 in his Kentucky Derby runner-up performance. So he is clearly the horse to beat. And I would imagine that he'll probably have a cleaner trip. I mean, even if the horses to his inside and outside outbreak him and go to the front, he shouldn't be too far off of them.
No, he shouldn't be too far off it. And if you go back and watch the film of some of his earlier races, like the San Felipe Stakes and even his maiden win back in November when he was a 2-year-old, he was actually covered up down on the inside in a more tracking position. So if he happens to find himself covered up down on the rail once again, going back and reviewing the film, Scotty, it wouldn't be an unfamiliar position for him in the early spot of a race if that's the case, and that's the way the cards play out for Umberto early on in here.
Just to his outside is American Promise. Now, this is a horse that ran a huge race in the Virginia Derby. We take you back to that afternoon. It's a 1-turn, 1.125 distance. He was able to go quickly and just keep on going quickly. If he's not trained by Dwayne Lucas, is anybody taking this horse seriously after his performance in the?
Probably not. And if he wasn't trained by Dwayne Lucas, would he be coming back in 2 weeks as well? I mean, Dwayne, this is what he does, right? He puts these horses in these spots, and he's had success with them for 40, 50 some odd years, whatever it may be. Scott, I remember talking to Nick Juarez after this race that we're showing here in the Virginia Derby. And one of the things I remember he told me in the post-race interview was, that specific race in the Virginia Derby is they wanted to be aggressive with him. They wanted to be in a more forward position. He wasn't far off the pace 2 and 3 starts back in the Risen Star in the Southwest, but they wanted to be aggressive with him. He didn't get that opportunity in the Kentucky Derby because of what Citizen Bull did in post position number 1. We'll go back and watch us key in on number 5 here, Scotty. Look at this. The 5-horse, white blinkers right there. Citizen Bull veers out to the right. He got his path taken pretty significantly. And now watch the body language of the jock. Now watch Nick Juarez here. Watch his right hand, Scott. Isn't he slapping this horse on the shoulder to get him up there, get him moving? I mean, this is a really, really big individual as well. Having that trouble, he finally was able to get him and make some forward progress underneath the wire the first time. But this is a horse that I thought he'd probably be shoulder and shoulder with Citizen Bull, if not for that trouble early on in the race.
I agree with that. That is a very fair point. Looking back at the start of his run in the Kentucky Derby, so we'll see if he can. Lucas as he's looking for consecutive wins in the Preakness Stakes after winning with Caesar Gray, who did not run in the Kentucky Derby, rather won the Pat Day Mile en route to picking up an American Classic. So we'll see how American Promise fares. Son of Justify, of course, a Triple Crown winner. Now, when we come into these races or any big race, there are a lot of storylines, and one of the big storylines of this year's Preakness Stakes is the father and daughter combo as far as trainer, Heart of Honor. Now, Jamie Osborne, it wasn't long back that he was here in the United States with a horse named Toast of New York, ran a big race on the heels of his win in the UAE Derby. And so he's back after several years. Safi Osborne, his daughter, is now a rider and a top level rider. And she came very close to winning the UAE Derby a couple of months back, defeated by Admire Daytona, who didn't quite bring it in the Kentucky Derby just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, and I guess the way to look at the competition here that Heart of Honor is going to lose to Admire Daytona's and the Blue Silks down the rail here as we look at this backtrack. He was the biggest price on the board in the Kentucky Derby. He was 42-1, nearly 43-1. He didn't beat a horse home. He finished last. I don't know if there's really a good way to spin that from a form factor in this particular spot, but you know, you would like to at least seen a better performance from Admire Daytona in the Kentucky Derby. Maybe the sloppy racetrack had something to do with that. But the other thing you could say for Heart of Honor is the fact that he's just so consistent. 6 lifetime starts, never been worse than second. And he's coming off a really good second, going 1 mile and 3/16. And he's run at the Preakness distance in his last 2.
Yeah, he definitely is a horse bred for the distance, bred for American racing. Whether that translates to American racing, we will find out. But it certainly would be a fun story to talk about following a big performance in the Preakness Stakes. He's 12-1 in the morning line. We'll see how he fares as far as the wagering is concerned. To his outside, Pay Billy, probably the longest shot in this race. Local prep, Federico Tessio, winners. This is a huge step up in class as far as the competition that he'll.
Yeah, he's a son of improbable. 8 lifetime starts, 4 victories. He's rattled off back-to-back wins, as you mentioned, in the private terms in the Federico Tessio. Probably part of the reason that he's here off this victory is the Tessio is a win and you're in for the Preakness Stakes. And he won by a length and a half. He's been improving in his last few starts. And what a moment this would be for his connections. Michael Gorham, he's trained on this particular circuit, the Mid-Atlantic circuit, especially Pimlico, for, I don't know, 30 plus some odd years, maybe 40 years. Raul Mena, his jockey, he's only ridden in 5 graded stakes races in his career. He would be looking for his very first graded stakes win. Upsets happen in sports, and what a moment would be for the local horse and Pay Billy. Not only if he could win, Scott, but I think just if he'd had a credible showing and just hit the board, the connections would be ecstatic here.
River Thames 9-2 morning line. Irad, Todd Pletcher, Windstar, China Horse Club. Obviously, the right people behind him. A colt that will have 5 weeks or so between races. Ran a pretty solid effort in the Toyota Bluegrass, going 1 mile and 1/8. He was coming in the end. Now, whether he can come to this level of competition, he Burnham Square at East Avenue who to the Kentucky Derby, top flight of horses, but still a very rated stakes win.
I think the running line that people are going to key in on River Thames is not the backtrack that we just showed you in the Bluegrass. It's going to be 2 starts back in the Fountain of Youth when he was just a neck behind the Kentucky Derby winner in Sovereignty. Off that particular race, I think he clearly showed everybody that he can play here and that he's an improving 3-year-old. He's run well in his last 2 graded stakes opportunities. Look him here, just coming past the 16th pole or so. He's game. He's just going to lose by 3/4 of a length. I guess, Scott, they could have gone to the Kentucky Derby, right? But the connection said, look, we've already squeezed 4 races into this son of McLean's Music in a matter of, 3 months or so. Maybe this is not the best idea to go ahead and send him to the Derby on the first Saturday in May. Let's be one of those fresh horses going into the Preakness Stakes. This has been the plan for quite some time. Skip the Derby, go to the Preakness Stakes. And I know Todd's never won the Preakness Stakes before, but you give Elliott Walden and the team at Windstar Farm and Todd Pletcher a goal 5 weeks out or so, they are generally tough. And I think River Thames can come with a big performance on Saturday.
Sandman, the number 7 horse, 4-1, Tappet, Mark Casse runner. He was kind of a late addition. He was added to this race later, earlier than what journalism was, but he's a gray horse that'll get a lot of attention, obviously, given the connections behind him. And you go back to his Oaklawn race, ran a big race, had a vision to establish that performance with his late running style.
And I think that's one of the things they wanted in the Arkansas Derby was what are 2 things that he's going to need? He's going to need distance and he's going to need a fast pace, right? He got that in the Arkansas Derby. He got a 45 1/2 mile, first time going a mile and an eighth. And he had a very good performance that day and he drew off and he won by 2 lengths. In the Kentucky Derby, I don't know what to make of his performance though, Scott, in the Kentucky Derby, because he was very far back early on. He was wide on the far turn. And he just sort of paced it home through the stretch and finished 7th on that afternoon on the first Saturday in May. Maybe it was the sloppy racetrack. Maybe we give him another opportunity over the sloppy racetrack. But, for all the talk about these horses wanting to come in fresh and not maybe come back in 2 weeks, look what Sandman's done, Scotty. Give this guy some credit. 9 starts. He's been going since last summer, since June. No layoff lines, no breaks. Showing up. He's just a gamer and he's very consistent.
Battle tested for sure. 5 runs at the age of 2, 4 runs this year, making over $1 million with a large chunk of that coming in the Arkansas Derby. Clever again. He's a horse for Steve Asmussen, who's had a good run of it here at Pimlico, period. He always brings a lot of horses here. We're going to see that this weekend. It looks like his runner Booth in the Maryland Sprint, for what that's worth, probably his biggest chance. But I mean, Clever again's not that far off. This to me was a standout performance from him. The way that he was able to draw off, and I know it's going to get tougher here today or on Saturday. He beats Gaming, who is one of the top 2-year-olds of Lon. But his win in the Hot Springs, I think immediately after that, Steve Asmussen knew that he had a Preakness type horse on his hands.
Hey, he's another one like goal-oriented for Bob Baffert we're talking about to go ahead and start the show, where when you look at the maiden win for Clever again, that was on the undercard of the Rebel Stakes when Cole Battle won the Rebel going a mile and a 16th in 143 flat. He put up a 91 buyer. Clever again won his maiden race with an 87 buyer, and that was off layoff and only his 2nd career start. So he wasn't very far off the top 3-year-olds in the spring on that particular circuit running in Hot Springs in just a maiden win. Then he follows it up with this victory that we're showing you here in the Hot Springs Stakes. He's a really talented son of American Pharoah. We can see that. He's really fast. He's got a great draw with Jose Ortiz to the outside to go ahead and see what develops towards this inside. This is really one of those up-and-comers for me, Scott, in the 3-year-old division right now.
No question about it. I mean, I think if I'm trying to pick a horse against journalism, he would be the one horse that I would gravitate towards. And I think he goes off. Maybe he doesn't go off second choice because of the somewhat high-profile nature of Sandman and get the connections and the name and all the things they're associated with Sandman. But if you're looking for a price or value, I think Clever again is probably going to give that to you on Saturday. Lastly, Gosger. He was late to the show. He wins the Stone Street Lexington at Keeneland. After that, we have enough points to get in race like the Kentucky Derby. At the connections, Brendan Walsh, Harvey Clark Racing were very well aware of that and mentioned that to us after his win at Keeneland. But a strong performance. Does he have that next step up is the big question. He's paired up a couple of very good performances, so we'll see how he gets on. He's got the pedigree for what it's worth, and he was eased down to the wire to win coming from off the pace to the first wire at Keeneland.
Yeah, he seemed like he wanted to lug in a little bit in the stretch right there in the Lexington. Irad Ortiz, who was riding that day, he kept this stick in his left hand, kept him straight right there. Keep in mind, he's a lightly raced horse. He's only making his third career start. Here's another look at it, Scotty, down the stretch. You can see that Irad's got his body language sort of just shifting to the right. He just wants to lean in. His horse wants to lean into the left a little bit here, but still a nice performance. He drew off 1 by 2. He's another improving one. You mentioned his pedigree here. He's a son of Nyquist, but when you look at the female side of the family here, this is a horse that has Preakness pedigree in it because the dam was unraced, but the dam is a sibling to I'll Have Another, who won the Preakness Stakes in 2012. So the pedigree certainly there for the improving Gosger here for trainer Brendan Walsh.
So that is your field, top to bottom, 1 through 9. I think that, look, I would love to see Michael McCarthy and Aaron Wellman, Eclipse Thoroughbred Partners, Bridlewood Farm, and all those involved with journalism pull this one off. And it's a sporting gesture that they come back. And I'm not saying that they're doing a favor to the industry, to folks, because I think that at the end of the day, they wouldn't be here if they didn't think they could win it. But I like Clever again. I do think that the price is going to be square on him, while journalism is going to be around 6 to 5, even money, whatever it ends up being. So that's where I go. I know it's only Wednesday, but as of Wednesday, where are you at as far as the Preakness for Saturday?
As of Wednesday, I would give the nod to journalism just because on Derby Day, Scotty, I was back and forth between journalism and sovereignty, and they both showed up. They ran very well running 1-2. I don't know the knock against journalism. I just don't have one. I can't think of one. What is the knock for journalism here coming into the Preakness Stakes because he ran so well in the Derby? If it's just going to be a price thing for you, and clearly that's what this game is, we're trying to make money in here. If it's just going to be a price thing and you want to look for a better price, I would go to the 6 in River Thames, knowing that this horse was right there with Sovereignty in the Fountain of Youth, knowing that he ran a good third in the Bluegrass Stakes, and that this has been the plan since the early part of April to sit out the Derby and come into the Preakness Stakes. If you want to go against journalism, you'll go Clever again. I'll go River Thames.
Fair. It's going to be a good race. We look forward to it. You and Carlo are in lockstep as he joins us. He's all in on the 6th, River Thames. It's going to be a lot of fun. Make sure you join us throughout the entire weekend on FanDuel TV, through the entire week, I should say, as we've got live racing starting tomorrow from Pimlico with our on-site coverage. 9 races tomorrow, 14 on, and then Saturday, of course, 14 races as well. That is going to wrap things up for our Preakness preview show here on the socials. Hopefully we have gotten our message across in battling hotel Wi-Fi as it goes with being on the road as we do for these big races. So for the entire team behind this here this afternoon, thank you so much for joining us. And most importantly, make sure you join us over on FanDuel TV starting tomorrow. For Keno, I'm Scott. We'll see you tomorrow on our coverage on FanDuel TV to, in earnest, kick off Preakness.